You know, I should probably title this episode CIG doesn't want you to have your Polaris, and some really cool clickbaity title, some nice orange or yellow lettering. Get that algorithm working in my favor. Haha. But no, the Polaris has been bumped off of the roadmap. So for those of you that don't know, the Polaris, it was originally sold in 2016, and we heard a little snippet about it. We got a little hint, I think around March or April of 2018, where there was like, well, there may be news about the Polaris soon, and then everyone kind of forgot that happened. And then late 2020, the Polaris did appear on the roadmap. So we started to get excited because it was like slated to begin work in June. And then that quietly slid until November of 2021, and now it's off the roadmap, along with the F8 Lightning and the F7A, like 1 and 2 models. I think the F7A and the F8 Lightning are probably going to see themselves back on the roadmap at some point soon. The Polaris, I'm not so sure. And the reason being is I think it's twofold. And you might be thinking that, oh crap, he's doing ship updates on the wrong day. No, this is kind of where the Piracy show comes in, and I think that CIG is very reticent to put the Polaris into the game, and so they don't want to put the Polaris on the roadmap because they don't want to give people the wrong impression that you're going to get a fully functional Polaris. And instead what the Polaris is going to be is it's going to be built for Squadron 42, but it's going to be set dressing. It's not going to really be a fully functional ship, because as a single player in a single player game, you can't really see how the Polaris is going to work in that respect. I think that in the most it would be something that you would see in the background of the fleet, or maybe there's some mission where you get left in deep space and then happily a Polaris happens along, they get your distress signal, and then they come pick you up, and because it's got that fighter bay, and they bring you back to the fleet, that sort of thing. That's probably the role that the Polaris is going to play, and so it's probably largely going to be set dressing, not unlike the way that the Reclaimer was built, where it's kind of like it's there and it works for trailers and it works for gameplay demos, but other than that, it doesn't really do anything in the game. And the Polaris is probably going to fill that same role, but they just don't want to put it out there and then have to go the extra mile of making everything work on it. And also, I don't think that they really want it in the game. And this is really the Piracy show take, is I don't think that CIG wants the ship loose in the game right now. And there's a number of reasons behind that. I think that there's the obvious use for this ship, right? It's supposed to be fast, and we're saying fast with air quotes, but it's supposed to be fast. It's supposed to have the biggest torpedoes that you can possibly get on a ship, so it's going to be pretty damn devastating. And it's very easy to see that a ship like this could wreak absolute havoc in Star Citizen as it's built right now. And I think that CIG just kind of doesn't want to let this one loose, Now, there is a bit of a counter in the game, or at least that's going to be arriving in the game, and I believe in 3.15, which is the Ares. There is a bit of a counter to the Polaris in that ship, the Ares heavy fighter. But is it going to be an effective counter? I don't know. How effective is it going to be? How many is it going to take to kind of take down a Polaris? I'm not really sure. I mean, pinning down a Polaris is one thing. Shooting it, entirely full of holes and blowing it up, entirely another. It would probably be something to kind of hound a Polaris and chase it away, but is it really going to be all that effective of a counter? I mean, you can say, oh yeah, if you were to put them in, Arena Commander, then yeah, probably. But, in a much wider, bigger universe, you might be able to dissuade the Predator, but to stop it entirely, it might be a different thing. But that is really just kind of like the most effective counter that CIG has on the books right now for something like the Polaris, that or potentially a Retaliator, though that can be somewhat problematic. And especially when Star Citizen is kind of like a right place, right time game, or a wrong place, wrong time game, where it's just like, oh, yeah, you got stuck outside of your ship, now we're going to blow you up. We were talking about that on yesterday's show. Or, you just happen to show up in a Polaris and he just happens to be trying to land his caterpillar on the surface of a planet, and it's like right place, right time for the Polaris owner. With such a wide kind of variation in terms of player power, depending on what ship you brought in your situation at that time, this is probably something that they kind of want to hold back on a little bit, because the disruptive effect that it could have on the game would be enormous. And of course, there are so many Polarises out there. There's a lot of people who want to get their hands on their Polaris, and I don't blame them. But what will happen. What will happen. It's like the first second somebody gets a Polaris onto a server, they're going to be like, hey, everybody, I'm at Port Olisar, I'm here, I'm there with my Polaris. Who wants to come and man a turret or man the torpedoes or whatever? And they're going to line up, and everybody else on that server is just going to be like, well, it's nice knowing you guys, because I ain't taking out anything bigger than a Gladius, because I need to be able to get away from this thing. Because it is going to be a monster, and everyone's going to be like, yeah, let's go out and let's blow crap up with the Polaris, and let's, take screenshots and put them on Reddit and videos and see how many people we can blow up. And it's just going to run rampant. We talked about the devastating effect that something like the Ares could have when it's released in the game, because there isn't a lot of challengers out there for something like the Ares. This is just the Ares on crack. This is just kind of going over the top. I mean, the Corsair technically kind of fits into that role as well. There's a number of ships that do. And a lot of the ships that we currently have in the game represent CIG's kind of old thinking as to how Star Citizen was going to be built. And, some of these really devastating things are kind of represent that new mode of thought. And so there's a lot of those 2013, 2014 ships out there, or 2012 ships out there, that just realistically just don't have the power to hang with some of this newer hardware that's coming out. And I think that the Polaris, is kind of like, it's one of those ships that they're just not sure what they're going to do with. Now, primarily, yes, I think going back to the beginning of the video, CIG's motivation is going to be the scheduling of Squadron 42 and all these ships like the F-8 Lightning and the F-7As, that they're going to try and find a way to kind of work these ships in. But I do think that there is like a consideration within CIG. There is a certain amount of weight or pressure or influence being placed on these decisions with the realization, as unfortunately slow as it has been for CIG, that there really are two eras of ships in Star Citizen. There's the age of sail, and there's the age of steam, comparatively speaking. I mean, it's going to be like an old-fashioned tall ship of the line and, a more modern steam-powered ironclad. We really do have this in Star Citizen, and we really haven't had to confront this problem, because most of the ships represented in this new era, in this, this great leap forward, so to speak, really haven't appeared in the game yet. And so I think that within CIG, there's probably even there is a bit of a quiet influence of, it's like, do we really want to let this thing loose in the game? Because most of the ships that we currently have in the game were kind of designed to live in the same ecosystem. But now we are going to start to see the emergence of some real beasts. And I mean, I think we can all honestly say that, if the Polaris arrived today, I mean, even the most polite people out there would be like, let's get in this ship and let's blow some stuff up. And it wouldn't be too long until, that started to become a major thing. I even think that, especially with ships like the Ion and the Inferno, the two versions of the Ares, I bet you that there are a number of people who are looking at that ship, possibly looking at the Redeemer too, if we can get remote pilot control of the turrets, and looking at other ships along those lines, and who are now, when this next Invictus sale comes up, who are going to be looking at these things. I think that there's quite a few people who have a lot of kind of middling civilian ships and fighters in their hangar. And I think that you're going to start to see, with this Invictus sale especially, you're going to start to see a shift to some of these more heavier, modern, hard-hitting ships. And the Polaris arguably was kind of the beginning of that. It's just we never really got to see it in game, so it didn't really become apparent. And I think that if it did arrive today, it would be very apparent, and something that's going to be much more obvious with the arrival of the two versions of the Ares. So something definitely to watch out for, and something to think about. Yeah, we'll have a better idea of where the Polaris fits in probably by the end of this month or early into next month. If it's going to fit back into the into the roster or the roadmap rather, or if it's going to get bumped out. But I would keep an eye, because maybe something else will fill that slot on the roadmap, and it could be one of these. It could be one of these larger and more devastating ships. And I definitely think, with some of the stuff that is kind of teed up to come out in the very near future, some of the stuff that is, fairly close to being done, you're going to start to see a lot bigger push within the community towards these ships. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch, and it's going to cause a lot of people to kind of reassess their hangars. And with this Invictus sale and the next anniversary sale coming up, I think we're going to start to see a pretty massive shift away from the kind of jack of all trades but master of none ships, and people are going to start looking more at the hardcore, hard-hitting ships.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.